welcome back. We got a really fun lesson today, so everybody I expect to follow along with me. Look at how simple our crayons are. All we have is a white, yellow, orange, an orange, red, and a black. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna draw a nice sunset with some mountains. We're also gonna use some special supplies today, which are Elmer's Glue, and something to scratch with, whatever you find best. A quarter, your nail, a guitar pick, a butter knife, scissors, really anything that you can scratch off crayon after using it. We'll get into that in a minute. So, with today's lesson, I say anybody can join because the techniques I'm gonna use are so easy to learn that you're gonna do an amazing job on your first try. So, congratulations already. Alright, so let's talk about how I developed this lesson. So I'm normally a painter. I paint all sorts of things, whether it's canvases or giant walls. And I use all sorts of different types of paints. And the great thing about paint is you could blend with it, right? So it has a sort of liquid goopy state that allows for two colors to blend and make a brand new color. With crayons, all we can really do is color over the other color and try to blend that way. I've tried using water, not soluble in water, doesn't even smudge. What does soluble mean? Well, basically, it's just a compound's ability to dissolve. Well, a crayon is made of paraffin wax, which is, before it becomes the nice colorful crayon we know, a hard white wax. Now, its solubility is found in either alcohol or benzene. So, alcohol, we all do know we have, but we don't necessarily want to paint with that right now. Maybe on another lesson. Today, we're going to look into the benzene component. So, what is benzene? Well, it's an organic chemical, and it has 6 carbon atoms that are in a ring. So they're in a ring, all these carbon atoms attached nice and tight, all hanging out. And then coming out from each one, like light rays, are hydrogen. Okay, we call this a hydrocarbon. Furthermore, because of that nice ring structure, we call it an aromatic hydrocarbon. What that basically means is that it has a high smell potency. Now, what does it smell like, benzene? Pretty much like crude oil. You ever pass by a gas station? That's what you're smelling. It's naturally found in volcanoes, forest fires, but I had to look at what do we use it in a household product that isn't gonna, be bad for us. And so I discovered that in glue we have an amount of it. So today we're gonna use glue to make our crayons soluble. All right, so let's go ahead and just jump right into this one. I'm gonna grab my yellow crayon. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first just put a light coat over the entirety of my piece of paper. Now I'm gonna just use the edge of the crayon, back and forth, back and forth. Look how much space I can cover because I'm not using the tip of it. If you've been following along with these videos, you've learned at this point that we can use our crayon in different ways to get different effects out of it. So here, I'm doing what I would call a color fill. And I'm not pressing too hard at all. That's important. I'm just sort of putting a light tone down. So there we go. And you'll get better at these fills too, the more you work with the crayons. If you get little inconsistencies, don't worry too much. We're gonna build this drawing up. All right, so I've pretty much got it all yellow, and I just wanted that there as a base so that I have my nice bright light coming from behind my mountains right now. Okay, so I'm gonna put that yellow back down. I'm gonna grab my orange. So with this orange, I'm gonna draw in my mountains. So here's the thing about a mountain. First, let's establish where we want the mountain to set, right? The ground that the mountain attaches to. So I'm just gonna have it be a little bit of my canvas today. So a little bit from the bottom, I'll go ahead and draw a line across. Perfect. So a mountain, really, at the end of the day, it's like life. It's just an up followed by a down. And it's how interesting you make that up and that down. So when I do mountains, I try not to make them all look exactly the same. And to an extent, I try to kind of set my critical thinking on the back burner and just kind of go with the flow. So, and remember, I'm just saying up, down, trying not to make them too repetitive. So here we go. So there's a nice little mountain. You can see I went up, went smooth on the up, and then I went bumpy on the down. I almost went to the bottom. Here's a great opportunity for me to put a mountain behind this mountain. Here we go. Maybe these will be little ones back here. All right, and then I think I'll close it off with another mountain coming this way so they're framed back there. Perfect. You can also add any other mountains you want, like low mountains or hills. Like sometimes I'll do this at the bottom just to give it a little hill or something. So it's up to you. Really, this could be a bajillion different ways. That's why I say anyone could follow along with it today. All right, so now I'm gonna take this orange crayon and I'm gonna indicate where I want the highlighted bits of the mountain to be. And we're gonna think of these mountains as two halves. So imagine them almost like pyramids. You'll see two sides of it. How I indicate a natural half of the pyramid is I'll kind of use what I would say is a letter N or a sideways Z and variations of that. So let me show you what I mean. Here's like a little like N shape. You see that? Or a Z? Notice how that adds dynamic there. I'm gonna do this on a few spots where I hit a peak. So like right here's a little peak. Come down, kind of hit back. And the idea is that you'll get better and better at these. You know, you'll start to see them more naturally, and before you know it, they'll all start to look unique and unique from each other. So notice how, you know, I'm saying to use this N, but you can see how distorted it gets and how creative I try to get with it. Over here, that, and then maybe the top of this hill. All right, perfect. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take this same orange crayon and we're gonna come from the top of the paper and we're gonna color down to about halfway down this sky, and then we're gonna go softer. So let's go. Now with this, all I'm doing is indicating a nice sunset, which can look a bajillion different ways like the mountains. All it really is about for it to look successful to the human eye is that we graduate our colors in order. So we're gonna go yellow, orange to red. I have a nice video on the color wheel over in our crayon saver video, so check that out if you're not quite sure what the color wheel is, because I go over it in a little bit of detail there. So here we go, getting a nice layer here. And if you go harder in some areas, softer, that's okay. All right, I'm gonna set this orange crayon back down for a minute. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the yellow one and I'm gonna color very hard over the areas where I want my highlight. So this will create a resistance so that when I come in with the glue, it will allow this yellow to resurface no matter what I've colored over it. So here we go, just kind of any bit, and you can see these getting brighter. These will always be the bright side of the mountains in this picture now. And you can see how also you can very easily indicate volume with just these two tones. Already this is feeling like mountains and we haven't even done shading or anything. All right, perfect. Now I'm gonna take this yellow before I set it down and I'm gonna brighten the sky as well behind. I like saturation in my work. The brighter and the harder you press, probably the stronger a drawing you'll have in the end. So I'm really pressing in as I did the mountains. And the idea is that that orange that we had just put, I'm gonna blend up into it, still pressing. And notice how it makes nice sort of yellow-orange tones. That's the whole idea. We just wanna naturally blend, kind of see what happens if we sit back a little and just scribble back and forth. We don't need to be in control of every cloud and every little bit. We know we're using the right colors in the right order. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and set that yellow crayon down. I'm gonna pick back up my orange one. I'm gonna do the sides of these mountains now that are going to be in the darker half. And I'm coloring quite hard. And here's the thing, when I get to those transition points from light to dark, they don't have to be as perfect. Notice how I let the scratch come out? That actually makes them look a little more natural in my opinion. So here we go. The only part where I'm being careful to make a clean line is really at the top part of the mountains, because that's where our eye is gonna see any inconsistencies. Down here, that's fine. These could be little boulders or edge of cliff faces. Could be a number of things. There we go. And color nice and hard. No sense in, not making a nice bright sunset, because that's what it's all about, is getting a nice contrast on here afterwards. And there we go. Perfect. Okay, if you'd like, you can enrich anything in the sky, meaning you can give one more pass with the orange. And that's the whole thing, is that art doesn't just happen on the first go. So many people I've talked to, they talk about a bad experience where they just couldn't get it, in that first sitting. But so often, it's a journey, it's a search, and it's a development, right? It's not done in that first step, so don't give up. You can always enrich it, always brighten it. Look how much more diverse our sky has become and everything very quickly. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab our red. So with the, and this is like an orange red, just to be clear. I'm gonna color the floor down here. This is gonna be really bright and hot down under that nice sunset. See how my hills are glowing? This'll be really nice at the end. And I'm really pressing down, getting a nice solid coat. So at this point, everything should have color on it. Okay, so I'm gonna put a little bit of this up in the top too. And this is at the top part of the sky coming down. And look how if I really press, I can make sort of little clouds. And I'm just doing back and forth. It's like, we all have seen those stretchy clouds that go across the entire sky. That's what I'm going for right here. All right. And maybe one or two with light pressure down lower, but not a whole lot. Okay, this is fantastic. You know what? Now we're ready to have some real fun with this. Let's try out this glue. So, you can apply this however you like. You can use Q-tips, you can use your finger. I'm just gonna use my finger for this first part. And I just opened it up, put a little glue on my finger. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go back and forth in the sky. And I'm gonna really kind of scrub till I start getting little blends. You'll start to see your crayon soften. Some of the grain will start going away. That's what I'm going for. I just want to kind of do a nice little blend. That's what the solubility does. This is what you get with a painting. Now, I'm not going to do the mountains yet. Look how smooth that's looking. And take your time with it. And at first it doesn't want to budge, but then you got to press a little. Now you'll notice if you press too hard, you could just take it right up to the original paper. So don't go so hard that you pull your entire drawing off. All right, and remember, not touching the mountains yet, because I'm going to do my own technique in there. So right at the edges of them. Perfect. And the more you kind of go at it, without being too rough, just kind of being patient, the more of a blend you'll get. Look how nice that's looking. And you get little surprises too, like your crayon will lift up and reveal some interesting grain. The sky just looks way more dynamic and connected at this point. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this glue back down. You could take a moment and clean your hands if you need. We're gonna go back to the mountains and the ground, and we're gonna prepare them to take on this glue. So we're working from back to front. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna color this entire floor right here. Real hard, so that it becomes a really deep red. Perfect. And then I'm gonna come up into the orange on the hill. There we go. Back and forth, back and forth. All right, and don't worry if it comes off more black in some areas than other areas. It's okay to have that range. Okay, let's do our hills. And what I'm doing is I'm coloring over the orange side of it, heading towards the yellow. And I'm not gonna go into the yellow completely yet. If you get some stray scratch marks in there, that's totally okay, but not too much more than that. Now, if you have any glue that entered your mountains already, you can either let it dry or not worry about it too much, because you'll notice that it resists the crayon, like you can't color on it. It's too smooth. So you'll start to get a hang of how much to use when and where, the more you toy with this technique. To be honest, Crayon Man did a little bit of science for you. I didn't even know a crayon was soluble in this until just yesterday. So we're all learning here. Look at that. Now we got some nice contrast back here. It's looking really nice and bright. Perfect, perfect. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit of this orange. I'm gonna go over the yellow. And with this, it's okay if you color into the black. The idea is just to get a nice coating here. On the hills, what this is it's like the ambient light. It helps make that background stand out more. So the orange against that yellow that's at the bottom of the sky. See how that starts to make the tops of my mountains stand out much more. All right. Get this whole guy. And you should have dirty crayons, dirty colors going on. We want this to look much more like a painting right now than some clean, line crayon drawing. Perfect. Okay. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm just gonna take this black one last time, and I'm gonna kind of go softly over some of these areas that are the highlight, and we're gonna remove it in the last step. So we have to say goodbye highlights, but notice how I'm not going quite as hard as I did with the other side of the hill. Still a little softer. And as a bonus, go in the direction of the slope of the hill. See the angle I'm using my crayon? It helps make it look like the mountain or hill is going upward. Alrighty, there we go. So now we're ready for the final step of our process. So I'm gonna grab my glue again. Now with this, I'm gonna use a Q-tip right here, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start removing some of the highlights that I did on the hill, or actually revealing them as I scrub. And I'm scrubbing. I want this to kind of tear at my paint, or crayon rather. I'm already thinking of it as paint because of the way it's starting to blend. And look at how I'm really just getting a range out of that. It's looking much more natural now. As your Q-tip wears down, just flip it over and use the other side. You'll find with a nice thick sheet of paper, you can really saturate it pretty well. Really scrub at it. What I like about the glue is it'll tear little bits out. So I'll even go into the shadows here and there and look at how all the oranges are starting to be revealed just in little bits. And you can really go with light pressure and give it as much as you want in those areas. This is those little details that we don't want to have to think about. This is why I said any of us can do this. There we go. Let's do a little bit of texture on the side of this one. See how it just warms up that hill? So nice. All right. So, for the last step, what I'm gonna do is set that glue back down. You can wash your hand real quick if you need. I'm gonna take some of this red orange, give any last little bits of kind of brightness in areas, mostly in the shadows, and it should slide around most of this. It's just kind of using the glue as a little bit of sort of lubricant to help it move. And there we go. And you can add a little here and there if you want on some of the bottoms of the hills, because typically the tops of a mountain are going to be brighter. All right, so at this point, all I have left to do is scratch. So with this, use whatever you feel is comfortable. I'm going to give this knife a shot, and I'm just going to start to scratch out the floor. Look at that, how it starts to reveal all these cool textures and bright colors, like that sunset is just landing down there. Oh, this is so fun. Sorry if you see me having a too excited of a time here, but this is quite thrilling to also see as I'm scratching, especially using the butter knife. It's got a little bit of texture on there because of the fact that it has those ridges. So there we go. We got the ground all bright, and it looks like it has little rocks and all this stuff just because it didn't scrape off consistently, which is great. And then up here, any last little highlights you want in your hills, which I do mostly towards the top. You could do them here and there, like see how this will add a little brightness in a spot that's really black. So this is really another area where it could look a little different from drawing to drawing. Speaking of which, I really want to see these drawings, and if you didn't watch yesterday's video, we still got that challenge out there, hashtag crayon saber, right? And so I want to see your crayon saber. You got a chance till April 21st to win an original drawing by me. So yeah, you better be powering up those crayons, and please send me pictures of this too. I want to see your beautiful mountains that you've done with the crayons. This has been such a fantastic lesson, and thank you again for joining me. Go ahead, keep the fun going. There's a link right there you can click on. Make sure, tell all your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. All right, well, until tomorrow, doodle on.